Very good. So my name is Nancy Wright, and I am president of the board of directors. I'm a volunteer with Campfire Golden Empire, which is a youth organization, national youth organization that's been in existence since 1910. We're going to see that as we talk about it. I chose this topic because it's kind of interesting to me, the history of girls camping in organized camps. I'm delighted that I think it's probably half and half, men and women today. I think that's wonderful. And today, that's about what we get in our camps, is about half and half. The other thing I'd like to say starting out with, two caveats. One is I have a personal bias. I'm an old white lady, and that gives me a certain orientation. The years that I have experienced, summer camps and all of that. And two, this is not a rigorously researched academic presentation. I can't say that my sources are documented. If I had done this at San Jose State when I was in college, I would have been kicked out because I am plagiarizing, using Wikipedia. ChatGPT is my girlfriend. So I just want you to know going into this that don't publish this in the main headquarters. Okay? So we're recording this for future use by our organization, but maybe some of you also. So I'm starting this with about 1880, when the world was industrializing, especially the United States. And there was a fear of loss of contact with the great outdoors. It was also kind of the closing of the frontiers in the West, that as industrialization was taking place. I think one of the most interesting things that I've looked back on, one of my primary sources, by the way, I'm going to actually read from this, is a really excellent book that's fairly new on the history of campfire in particular. But the theory was, and I'm not going to read these slides because I know that you can read, is that boys in particular were not getting the kind of He-Man masculinity that was expected at that time, as also the brink of World War I, and nationalism was happening. And they wanted a way to encourage masculinity and wholesomeness. That was a word they used, wholesomeness, meaning guys are going to be guys. They're going to be out there and they're going to be out in the woods. So then, in reaction to that, the girls' camps started to become of interest. And in particular, again, if you look historically, this was the time of women's suffrage. This was when women were working toward getting the vote, which didn't happen until 1920. So the first camps were around 1900, girls' camps. The emphasis there was interesting because, as opposed to the boys needing to be boys and masculine, they were emphasizing girls' femininity and household, the joy of being a domestic housekeeper, the kind of housekeeping skills. This, Laura, I put her in here because she was the first women's camp director. And it was a pretty brave thing to do. She was the owner and director. And she was the first one to say that girls should wear bloomers, pants, when they're outdoors. Otherwise, it would have to be skirts that you would hike up. So the first Campfire Girls Camp, this was our organization that was founded in 1910. There was also Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and YMCA. These were all founded around the same time. But Luther Gulick and his wife founded a camp. And it was led to find adventure at home in service to the new industrial age by men. The hearth fire was to stand as a symbolic source of outdoor romance for girls. So These are the first camps. Actually, the first camp I went to had a tent just like that. Kind of, they were taken from the wartime camps, the Army. One of my favorite aspects of all of this, but one that is very now controversial and changing, was the Woodcraft Girl. The Woodcraft movement was kind of parts of the arts and crafts movement, I think, also, and also the decline in the stress that was put on Native Americans during the time. You know, you read about the schools, the Indian schools, that kids were abducted and taken to, and they were forced to cut their hair off and give up their language. The Woodcraft movement, in a way, was to support the native culture. Now we look back on it and say it was cultural appropriation. So this is an ongoing kind of controversy with it. But I love what this says. The girl of today is healthy. She knows how to live with an overflowing sense of power. But on the other hand, when we get down to the bottom, she also knows how to make a home happy and attractive, how to make her clothing, how to care for and make friends with little children. She knows how to meet people simply and in a manner that makes everyone at their best. She's brave in the presence of external dangers and facing her own problems. She does her best, whatever her station may be, conscious of the great spirit's presence and honors her life. I love that. So here they are, wearing their appropriated native costumes, beaded headbands and all of that. This carried on until, actually there are still some Camp Fair affiliates nationally who are reluctant to give this up, but they are being told by our national organization that it's time to move on. But it wasn't just domestic activities at camp. They also put on the right there, you see that they're actually knitting or sewing outdoors on their cabin platform. But they're also doing archery and a whole new way of thinking about femininity, balancing. So, moving quickly on through history, the 1960s brought about the civil rights movement and a lot of changes, very much like what you saw with the George Floyd times. I want my glasses here. And this I want to actually read to you because this to me is the crux of where we are today in the overnight camp movement. During the 60s, Camp Fire undertook an inner city program to try to reach out to young people who had not had experience with overnight camp, much like many of you who, some of you may culturally have not had the experience of going outdoors and sleeping outdoors overnight, whether it's cultural or just because your family didn't do it. Convincing parents to go to camp, the kids who should go to camp, was a major task. Camp brochures, which described a camping philosophy of building self-confidence and skills in the outdoors, perplexed low-income families of color with their description of camp nicknames and photos of girls carrying firewood and doing archery. Struggling with varying degrees of literacy, busy parents also found unfamiliar terms confounding. Both day and resident camp, offering with their varying fees, were listed, and brochures assumed the reader knew the difference. Different dates for registration and camper fees required further decoding, likewise difficult and time-consuming for families to obtain forms, medical examinations. Camp costs were significant for low-income families. Day camp was $10 for 8 days of camp, and prices for resident camp ranged from $19 to $50 for 1 week. Camperships, which we also have available, the parents were aware of camperships, but few women sought them out for their daughters. They may have been reluctant to ask for charity, or may have been reluctant to send their daughters away for a week. Many parents lacked the time required to get their daughters ready for camp. One said she was too busy to get together all of that stuff you need, referring to the registration paperwork, physical exams, equipment, bedding, towels, luggage, and transportation. Many low-income families at the time shared bedding at home and couldn't afford to have an extra set. I will say that not much has changed in terms of our experiences in Vallejo in particular, which is where our office is based. I want to go back through this and see, because yeah. So let's go on to Nancy. There I am. So young, right where you are today, exactly there. Maybe 2 years later, I got my first job with Campfire. That makes me just kind of touched to see her. She's so young. And to think, this is 1967, to think about the changes that took place between 1967 and today in terms of girls and women, in terms of overnight camp, in terms of who we are. This is our camp. I want to say some of the resources that I have here. In terms of how we've changed, this is the club book for high school girls in 1941. And the activities, they start out with your personal appearance, that you should do an assessment of your hair, your skin should be vibrant and glowing as your wholesome look. That it goes on with how to meet boys, how to dress, how to serve tea, that you should wear a hat always when you go to a tea. And then the other, again, this is 1929, the Every Girl magazine. The big deal was they have an interview with Mary Pickford, who was then the current hot star, movie star, and that was kind of the ideal girl, how to be a girl. Some of the other skills that they were encouraging girls to build. Now today, when I went into the office to try to say what resources are we using, tapping into, I'm looking at one, helping teens handle tough experiences, building resilience. These are words that 100 years ago were so foreign. We were talking about wholesomeness and masculinity. You may go back to that. Yes. And then design for belonging was another one I picked up, that inclusion and diversity. I'll say it out loud. Somebody said, are you going to use that word? And I said, yeah, I am, because that's who we are. So Camp Gold Hollow is the camp that Chloe mentioned that we met at. It's a 50-acre camp outside of Nevada City, California, which is in the Gold Country. It's about a 3-hour trip from here. It's a traditional camp. We don't have ropes courses, we don't have horses, we don't have water slides. This is very traditional with canoeing, kayaking. We have a lake, Lake Vera, and we can accommodate 60 kids, and then we have usually 10 or so CITs, counselors in training, who are 16 to 18 years old. 18 is the beginning age for a counselor, full counselor. And yes, we are in the application process right now for our positions. So this is the lodge that was built in 1927, originally by Mills College. We acquired the camp in 1944, 80 years ago, and there is our beautiful lake, our boathouse, and lawn area. We have all the traditional activities, archery, singing around a campfire, outdoor cooking, games, but especially inclusion. The kids, I often ride the bus from Vallejo to Gold Hollow as a bus mom. And the kids get on the bus scared. They'll sit there isolated, they're not talking to anybody, but the minute they get off the bus, the way things are set up is that they are greeted and embraced and launch into their activities immediately, into the fun. I've not had one kid that said, I had a miserable time. We are encountering, I will say, a lot of neurodivergent kind of syndromes, and I'm not sure that that was, again, what we were seeing either in 1967 when I was on the staff, or definitely in 1910 when things were starting. I think it's because we're much more aware now of the needs that kids have. I thought it was really interesting hearing some of your expressions of fear and anxiety as you're about to go out on your first overnight. And that's part of what we do at camp, is to recognize that, all of those feelings, and to help kids get through them. And those counselors too. So I want to spend some time saying what's important now. Why do we care about overnight camp for kids? And it's a lot of it because of that feeling, the need to feel included, to feel like you're part of something bigger, which is why I volunteer, because I want to feel like I'm part of a bigger thing than whatever the little stuff I'm watching on the news is, and that I'm important to kids as they mature, and that we have fun. So wholesome today means more mentally healthy, not so much connected to our technology. And so why get used to camp? That's really, I think, where you are as you're looking at your first or more camping experience, or as you think about becoming a camp counselor. The thing that I feel most strongly about, and I heard this several years ago, quite a few years ago, by somebody from the national parks, that we take for granted our national parks, our state parks, our regional parks, but it's because of a political context that they're created, they're funded. And if we don't have a diverse constituency for outdoor environments, we won't be able to support them. We're in a political situation right now where funding is out on the line. And a diverse community of all kinds of people who vote and care about the outdoors is really important. That's my number one. But also disconnecting youth from technology. By the way, Gold Hollow does not have internet access. If you go, we have a landline right now. We're looking at Starlink because it's actually funny. The parents ask, and they're not asking because they want technology. They're asking because they want no technology. And because I think you read about this is probably what you're studying in all your other classes, is that being outdoors promotes health, cognitive function, awareness, being part of the world. I'm sure you're getting that in many other places. The thing that now is difficult is getting kids to camp. And why I wanted to read that passage is because even though that was written about the 1960s, today we are faced with a situation where parents are afraid to let their kids go to camp. They're afraid to go to camp themselves, but they're afraid to let their kids go. Back in the 1960s, it was like, get the kids out of here, take them away, have a good time. We'll party in the meantime, the parents. But now it's this trepidation, the fear of what is unknown. Sometimes culturally, when I talk to my Latina friends about going to camp, it's like, is that like the labor camp? Is that like working out in the fields? A totally different context for thinking about things. African American kids, parents associate the woods with some very negative history kinds of things. So making an available on-ramp to camp is something that I think is really important now. And in particular, my bias is toward family camps. I think that's the way to, even just one overnight or even just a day at a camp would be very helpful to a parent to be able to feel comfortable themselves and then pass that comfort on, and also day camps. So with that, that's what we have. here we are with the Indian maidens who are now giving up their ceremonial gowns and our campfire today at Gold Hollow. So I brought a couple of flyers, and I'm happy to give them to you to post, to have a link. But also, I hope you'll go on our website, which is, put it up here. Anyway, I'll include that. CampfireGoldenEmpire.org, and there you can apply to be a camp counselor right now. Our camp is in July into the beginning of August, and we have a total of 2 weeks of overnight camp and 2 weeks of day camp. And if you're volunteering for day camp, you could stay at Gold Hollow during that time and have meals provided. And I'm saying volunteering, we pay honorarium, we call it. It's not something that you'll make thousands of dollars off of, but you definitely have a feeling going away that you've made a difference in kids' lives, and you'll have made new friends, definitely new connections with other people as a counselor. So I think. Oh, and then I have a couple of sources here, and again, I'll give this presentation to you so that you can post these. These were a couple of the books that I used, but as I said, Wikipedia and ChatGPT are my friend. So, questions? No questions.